is the White Seabass. Let me introduce you, Edward Hartman. He's been, he has 40 years.
Okay, so is Seabass.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
What does he know?
Just about everything. Well, here's some of the. I just brought those. You can pass those around. That was one of the special trips I took. Anyway, I'm Edward Halterman, of course. I got to start off by saying something I heard about 22 years ago on my first sea bass trip, and it's white sea bass are gay. And at the time, I didn't know what that meant. I was trying to figure it out. These guys kept saying it on the boat, white sea bass are gay, white sea bass are gay. So I was like, okay, are they festive? Are they bright and showy? What's the deal? I mean, do they only come out to play when they want to? I don't get it. So after I did it a few times, I figured it out. The people that were saying white sea bass are gay was the guys that weren't catching them. So I learned to, figure out how to catch them. So anyway, in fact, last year I went on a trip. I got called into a really hot bite in Point Vicente. So I race over there. It's a wide open white sea bass bite. Was on a buddy's boat. He had a boat problem. That's all I'm going to say. Trying to anchor up in between all these guys, and I really respect other boaters. That's another thing I'll get into later, is boat etiquette. You really want to be nice to the other boaters out there, not crowd guys that are in the middle of a wide open fight. It pisses me off when it happens to me, and I definitely don't do it to other boaters. When I see them bit, I stay way the hell away from them. That's just me. But anyway, so we anchor up on the spot. Less than 5 minutes later, there comes Alan Watson. And the spot I was fishing was the Boiler Rock there in Point Vicente. Uphill current, incoming tide, created like this little swirl action. So what was happening was the sea bass were just swimming in a circle because everybody's throwing chum out, and it was just holding right there, and they were pinned up in like maybe a 20 meter radius. So next thing I know, here comes Watson. He anchors up, and I'm here. Braille's a whole, just a whole load of live squid, and that was it. Their whole boat limited out, and maybe in 15 minutes that bite was done. So then I looked over to the right of me, and there was a guy, and he just looked at me, and he goes, "White sea bass are gay." I just looked at him, and I said, "Yeah." And that was it. It was pretty funny. But anyway, let's get into the nuts and bolts of this thing. One of the things that I've learned in the last 10 years is networking. Very important. Very important to get out there, meet your brothers out on the water, get to know boat captains, get to know everybody, bloody decks, 976 tuna, gold member, love it. All that stuff is good. You want to utilize everything you can to catch sea bass because it takes more than just going out on the water. Research is key. If you look at bloody decks as an example, there's a lot of times I can tell 1,000 words just by looking at one picture that a guy took. Maybe there's blood on the deck. If there's blood still on the deck, chances are they're still in the same spot. Because usually when there's blood on the deck, I clean it up on my boat. That's how I do it. If I'm on somebody's boat, it's clean, So usually when you see that, check for landmarks in the background, look around and dissect the picture, and you can usually figure out where people are at. Not always. People that are smart, like, I'm not going to say I'm smart, but when I take my pictures, it's like, take them on the boat, take them to the side, it's pretty good. But anyway, you can tell a lot from that. So, or maybe maybe they look like they're really tired because they just fought, a 50-pound sea bass or whatever. So that's some of the things that I utilize. Another thing is weather. This is something that a lot of people don't ever touch on. They don't ever think about it. Learn to read the weather, because I've been out there a couple times and almost lost my life, and it's no fun. Actually, one of the trips I went out with Mr. Lee, we were looking at some faces that were like 20, 25-foot swells, and you don't want to be in that stuff. And actually, the other two boats that were out there that same day over at SBI, one of the boats, well, the other two boats except ours flipped over. Two of the guys died on one of the boats, and my neighbor, which is one of the frog guys that jumps out of the Coast Guard, he rescued guys in the other boat. We were the only one that made it back without flipping over. That's because Mr. Lee, shorter, low center of gravity. If I would have been the captain, boom, we would have rolled over. Because, different center of gravity. Oh. Anyway, so weather, what you need to do is, I have phone numbers in the weather that I use online. You need to learn how to read swells and wind swells and everything, because too many times these guys are just gung ho. Oh, yeah, it's a wide open sea bass fight. Well, we got to go kill him. We got to go kill him. They race out there to kill him, and then they get, the crap beat out of them just trying to do the channel crossing. So usually what I do, if you see 20 knot winds, don't go. If you see 3 to 5 foot swell in under 10 seconds, don't go, because you're just getting hammered the whole trip, and it's not going to be any fun. The water's going to be turned over. The sea bass probably aren't going to bite anyway, because as soon as that water chills off, they're like a bear. They go back into their cave and sleep for until it warms up again. Anyway, moon phase, that's another thing. I like to go 3 days before or 3 days after a new moon or a full moon. And that's just me, and that it doesn't mean that you can't catch sea bass on any phase, but for me, you're going to have the best tidal swings and the best water movement, which activates one of their feeding habits. They love to move on that stuff. That's why they like to bite also, at gray light. I mean, that's one of the best times to get them at gray light. That's another time they love to feed. They love to feed when the sun goes down. They love to feed with the moon overhead, the sun overhead. I mean, there's all kinds of different conditions. And that's another thing. When you're over there at Catalina or whatever island you fish, I don't know anything about Santa Barbara. I can prove that. Some of these other guys out here know about Santa Barbara. Catalina, I know quite a bit about that island. You always have to look for conditions. I mean, so many times we went over there, I've been out on charters, I've been out on boats, you go over there, you drop it down, and your line just does this. It's not always a kiss of death, but it's usually not a pretty good sign. And one of the reasons I like to go when those moon phases are the way they are is because sometimes you get what I call a false current, because the tide's moving in and moving out, and if you're fishing some of those shallow spots, your bait's going to be moving around, and it's going to be kind of active, which is good. And so that's really excellent under those circumstances. If you don't find current, try to move around the island and try to find some. Very important. You could be fishing West Cove and just move around to Bend West, and everything could change all of a sudden. Maybe conditions have changed and you got current again. So that's one thing that I do. I move around sometimes. And other times I just sit and wait, because I know the tide's going to flip, and I'm just sitting there waiting. Last year I was on a trip and we were fishing this spot called the Nook. Actually, it was a wide open bite there for 2.5 months, and about 4 guys knew about it. Every single trip wide open. Every single one. And that spot was funny, because one trip we went out, we just sat there. We sat there and sat there and sat there. And then I guess one of the sport boats guys heard about it, so he shows up, and we're sitting there, and they're all fishing really hard, they're all got their lines in the water, and we're just kicking back, drinking sodas. One of my buddies drinking beers. We're just relaxing, checking our watches. Okay, it's an hour before high tide, let's go. Hour before high tide, we get our lines in the water, boom, boom, boom. And then it's on. And then all these other guys are like, whoa. And nobody was bit yet. We were the first boat that got bit, but we just knew. And so then it was on, we got our limits, and I don't know, maybe 15 minutes we were done. It was that fast. I mean, just looking in the water, you see these little torpedo things darting by the boat, boom, 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 boom. Loads and loads and loads and loads of fun. Boat pressure. That's another thing. I like to avoid it, like the plague. I mean, if I go to any part of that island and I see a crap load of boats, I go the heck away from them. A lot of people have been fishing east. That's been the hot thing. I usually go west. I like to stay the hell away from everybody, because when I get bit, I like nobody to know about it except me and my friends. So that's why I do it. That's part of the reason. If you need to fish with a fleet, understand the way the current's moving, where the chum's going to go, and where you want to set your boat. Very important. If you got an uphill current and you're fishing the east, uphill's going, San Francisco way. Current's going that way. Chum's going to be going this way, right? Sea bass are going to eat up the chum line. So where do I want to be in position? If the fleet's here, I'm over here. That's where I'm setting up. Because when those fish come through, not always, generally, I'm the first boat that's going to get bit. And then they're going to move on down the chum line. Another thing, I see this all the time. I go over there, look at other boaters, and I watch what they're doing, and I try to help them out if I can, if we're talking and we can see each other. Everybody must chum. If you don't chum, you're freaking retarded. You have to chum. I go over there every time with 20, 40 pounds of chum and just chum religiously. Every 15 minutes, throw out a handful. And then when you meter fish, I just went over there 2.5 weeks ago to West Cove. I metered fish. There's fish at West Cove. It just couldn't get the bite. Throw that chum out. I mean, as soon as you see them on the meter too, especially, throw a couple more handfuls out. Sometimes you'll get them to stop on your boat. And then once they stop on your boat, just feed them. Keep them on your boat and then just pitch it down. I usually put on 2 squid every time. I never mess around with 1. I love 2. That's just me. I mean, I always pin 2 squid. I've gotten bit just as much on frozen and fresh dead, probably more so than live squid. I mean, everybody's all concerned about getting live squid. I've probably caught more on frozen than anything because we go over there and load up with a few 100 pounds of it and bring it back and store it in the freezer, and then every time we're going over with frozen. Always take it over there. If they have squid, you know, at the receivers and you don't have any frozen, get it every trip. Usually you can make it pretty simply over there if you have the lights and the crouters and the equipment. You can meter it. It's pretty easy, but never go over there empty-handed. And for God's sake, don't bring over the packaged freaking squid unless you want to scare sea bass. When they see that, they get scared. I'm just joking. The packaged squid it gets bleached, and I've never in my life, I'm sure somebody has, I've never seen a sea bass eat that. You know, maybe they do. As far as I know, it's blue perchy. So I don't know. But anyway, that's just me. When to go? For me personally, I'm not a weekend warrior, never have been. I don't like to go during the weekends. I go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because you're going to have less pressure. The fish get more excited, you know, because there's less boats over there. They like that. They get going. They get pumped up. Then, of course, you know, you're there in a bite little harbor. Nobody's there. You know, it's real nice. So many times in Little Harbor I've gotten limits. That's one of my favorite spots in Catalina. I just love Little Harbor. It's awesome. The only thing you got to watch out for is bat rays. Actually, that's something else I was going to talk about. This is one of my dropper loop rigs. See if I can. Might actually. There's. Can somebody untangle that for me? It's kind of a mess. It's an 8-foot dropper loop. And the reason I do that, like, especially like when you fish the backside of the island, or let me try this out. Maybe I can get this other one out. When you fish like these deep water spots with these dropper loops, one of the problems at Catalina is there is a crap